The iconic London skyline has been photographed thousands of times by professionals and amateurs alike. But there's one British photographer, Carl Warner, who has immortalised Tower Bridge and the Gherkin in a unique way. If you look closely at Carl's London skyline, you can see it's made out of crackers, green beans and broccoli, amongst other edible ingredients. Carl makes landscapes out of food and then photographs them.
I've always had a love of landscape photography, but I've always worked all my life as a still life photographer. This kind of combines the two. I can make my own scenes, I can travel the world through food.
I think it works brilliant.
This was the very first one I did. I started off very simply. I found these beautiful portobello mushrooms and I looked at them and thought, these look like trees. So I brought them back to the studio, put them on a big tabletop with some rice and beans, and it's down to the lighting and the camera angle to get really low underneath them to make them look like they really are trees in some alien world.
We can trace the use of food in art as far back as the 1500s, when Italian artist Giuseppe Arcimboldo first painted fruit and vegetable faces. Then, from the 20th century onwards, a few artists began using foodstuffs to create mosaics. Carl Warner has taken this to the next level. By photographing actual sets made from food, his final images have a sense of depth and perspective that food mosaics don't.
Today we're working on the last picture for my new kids book, which is basically landscapes made out of food, but predominantly one colour. So this one today is going to be pink.
And it all starts with a sketch first?
It starts with a sketch, yeah. The sketch is just kind of my rough idea of how I sort of see in my head what I think the scene's going to look like. I then sort of go out to the sweet shops and see what I can find that I can use in this picture. And I was very fortunate that I came across this wonderful Italian nougat, which has got a pink backing, but it's got these beautiful nuts inside, which look like a Flintstone wall. So over my shoulder here is Paul making our cottage, and he's actually cladding the lower part of the cottage with this nougat, which gives us a very realistic look.
I bet they're happy with you down the local sweet shop then.
They love me down the local sweet shop, yeah. Primarily, I look for things that do look like the similar larger counterparts in nature. For example, a broccoli obviously looks like a tree, and that's quite an easy one. But a coconut, for example, you chop it in half and it looks like a haystack. I made a scene out of smoked salmon where the texture of the surface of the water is very similar to that of smoked salmon, which I actually spotted in a restaurant. Thought, oh, look at that. You know, excuse me, sir, can I have your plate of food? Look at that.
And what are the difficulties about making sets from food?
The hardest part, of course, is food perishing. Coriander, for example, it's a very fragile herb, so the moment you cut it and stick it into your scene, you turn around and, you know, 30 seconds later it's wilted. So I tend to use more robust things like curly kale. It lasts well under the lights, and it's great stuff because I can use it close up as bushes, but I can use it in the distance as tree canopy or rainforest canopy. So I love curly kale.
Well, the cottage is in and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really pleased.
This is a pretty surreal landscape, but not all of them are like that.
No, no. I mean, some of them are very realistic looking and some of them are more sort of fantasy lands like this one.
How do people respond to your work?
Well, I think they initially do like a double take on the more realistic looking images. People see it, they think that it's actually a real place, and then suddenly realise that it's actually made of food, and at that point they smile, and I always found that's the nicest part of it, seeing their reaction, because there's so much doom and gloom around, and just to see something that, you know, gives people a bit of joy, I think is a great thing.
I could happily live in that finished scene. Carl's food landscapes are certainly full of surprises and definitely bring a huge smile to everybody that sees them.